Hi there guys, it's Aaron here from All Out Gaming. I'm coming to you at the tail end of the day from the Gamescom show floor where I want to talk to you about, yes, nothing Xbox related, I want to talk to you about Kirby's Air Riders. So this is obviously the big new upcoming game releasing for the Nintendo Switch 2 at the end of the year that had its big recent 45-minute direct blowout. Well, I actually got to play it for roughly 30 minutes, and guys, the best word I could use in order to describe my time playing Kirby's Air Riders is chaotic, okay? So we get in there at the booth. Like I said, the hands-on time is 30 minutes long, and I don't really know what to expect. I've never played the original Kirby's Air Ride, but I also think that that's going to be the situation and the case for a lot of people coming to this sequel, this long-awaited sequel, releasing on Nintendo Switch 2 very soon. So obviously, we're not really dying for a really good racing game right now on Nintendo Switch 2. We've got Mario Kart World, and the first thing I should say, in addition to the gameplay being quite chaotic, is that this is very much a different flavor of racer. It's very simple inputs, big impact, high motion, very colorful, and it's a real big frenzy. So the big difference, obviously, is that it's all about boosting. Kirby's Air Ride is all about jumping on your machine, whether or not that be a star or a tank. I was driving around on a tank at one point as the big pink blob. We were absolutely loving it, and basically boosting around corners, trying to make the most of the high air time, whether that means jumping through a loop, and then making sure that your machine lands parallel to the ground so that when you land, you gain the biggest boost possible. I wasn't expecting this level of technicality in terms of the racing mechanics from something like Kirby's Air Riders, but it manages to seamlessly balance that simplicity but also complexity. This is a racing game intended for kids to play with their parents, and you very much get a kiddier vibe compared to what's going on in Mario Kart World, but also it's different flavor. I don't know if I'd even call this game karting. It's kind of like race floating, because while there are multiple characters to play as, I believe I played as obviously Kirby during the demo session. I also played as somebody called Knuckle Joe. Knuckle Joe is a character in the Kirby universe, apparently. Maybe that's me being ignorant. Every character has their own special ability, so that when you deal enough damage to enemies on the track, that means gobbling them up using the tap of the B button as you're behind them. You'll gobble them up instantly, then blast them out whoever the target is in front of you next. Your second way of attacking targets is what's called the spin. And this is where it really becomes really satisfying. So in the main race mode that I got to try, when I was racing against the other NPC characters, anytime you bump up against a fellow racer, rather than just crash into them or let them pass by, if you give a really quick left-right flick of the left analog stick, that will cause your machine and your character to spin right round. You'll cause damage to the character in front of you, and that will help fill your special meter. As I believe was shown in the 45-minute Nintendo Direct, Kirby's special attack is pretty standard, at least Pink Kirby. He'll turn into that sort of linkified form, complete with a hat and a sword, and anybody who gets near him, he can sort of spin around in a daze for a prolonged amount of time. So you build up that speed, you build up that boost, you're boosting around corners, holding the B button, you're trying to make the most of it, and then once you've built up enough of that special ability, you can basically go ham, go frenzy on all those fellow racers and getting them out of your way. Crucially, while most of the characters, including Knuckle Joe, have alternate outfits, the alternate outfits on every character aside from Kirby offer the same special ability. It's only when you go over to Kirby on the character select screen and change his color to something like blue or yellow that he no longer has that sword frenzy attack, and it might suddenly be fire based. It might suddenly have something to do with electricity. I wasn't able to try out the various other versions of Kirby during my demo, but like I said, the main frenzy attack with the pink Kirby, very satisfying to pull off. Knuckle Joe, this is now a video all about Knuckle Joe, by the way. Knuckle Joe's special ability, rather appropriately, will see him punch his fists in a frenzy, equally as bad, but you're sort of guiding it towards the front of your path. So that just about sort of does it in terms of what to expect from, you know, during races. You're still racing people, trying to become first. There's still plenty of action, plenty of ways to strategize around the track, even though you're only ever really using one button on your Nintendo Switch 2, B. B is what you use to boost. The longer you hold it down, the bigger the boost you'll have. There's obviously a cap to that boost, but that's your best way to maintain momentum and keep your speed up. Interestingly, you always have that forward momentum, and it's when corners are involved that if you hold down that B button again, you'll continue to maintain that speed despite you holding down to boost, which doesn't usually happen when you're just on a normal straight part of the track, and then you'll feel the benefit just like you do whenever you take a high jump, land your machine as parallel as possible I found landing the machine in a parallel sense to be really tricky because my natural instincts was to kind of like pull your machine up just before your wheels touch the ground. That's obviously not the case here because you want to land parallel, and most characters like Kirby rides a star, doesn't actually have wheels, but the effects and the intended motion is very much the same. So I got to try out a standard race like that, as well as the tutorial mode where you're learning most of these things, in addition to things like rail grinding, boosting, how to land properly. So there's a fair bit of strategy in that way where adults will find it tough to master, but if you want to hand it off to a younger player, they're not really going to struggle to sort of have fun, because the whole point with Kirby is that it's having fun, and it's kind of like not baby's first platformer, baby's first racer, because like I said, there's that depth there, but it's a better entry point to that genre for younger players. And if there's anything about the Nintendo Switch 2 we've learned so far, it's that Nintendo will never leave that younger player base behind. In terms of where the real chaos comes in, revolves around a mode which I got to play called City Trial with 3 other players alongside me. If I had to liken it towards anything, it would probably be battle mode from Mario Kart World, specifically the coin-based battle mode, where you're driving around a massive arena trying to like deal the most coins, damage the most players, absolute anarchy. If you thought that was mad, City Trial mode in Kirby's Air Riders is equally as mad, because the whole point is not necessarily to do the most damage to players. You'll pick your character and then you'll be entered in on this wide open map where there is ledges, there's depths to it, but you can't exactly fall off because, like I said, we're trying to cater towards the younger audience as well here. And then the ultimate objective, rather than get the most quote-unquote kills against the other players, even though they're all on the track with you, is to gain the most perks, whether that be a boost, whether that be an electric shock ability, whether that be something that makes all the other characters on the map small for a period of time. Rather than trying to run around the map, trying to find these 3 other players, in my case, which, you know, is a bit like a needle in a haystack, especially when there's multiple layers going on, my ultimate objective is to get the most power-ups by the end of the round. The first round, I think I ended up on 18 power-ups in that time, and then the second round, I kicked some ass, I'm not gonna lie, I ended up with around about 78 power-ups, and the Nintendo colleague at the booth can vouch for me, that definitely happened, so I won that one. Another thing to mention is that while this is all happening, you start off with your character's standard machine, but then pressing Y at any time, you can find a bigger and better machine to jump on in real time. Your character will leap into the air, it will target the machine that's next to you. After you press Y, you'll jump onto that machine, and that machine might handle a bit better, might be a little bit better at that spin maneuver I was talking about earlier in terms of picking up new power-ups, which are sometimes stored in boxes, versus power-ups which you can simply run into. City Trial mode, there's also some randomization in that bosses can appear at any point, and if you take down the bosses either by yourself or as part of a team, there was this big stone boss that appeared at the end of the map, and I was just wailing on him with that left analog stick switch over again. And the Nintendo representative was like, yeah, I don't think you'll be able to do that by yourself. And then eventually, after about, you know, good 20-30 seconds going at it, I got him down, and he just unleashed a cacophony of power-ups. And I don't know what they all did, but all I know is that I was winning heading into the next phase. The next phase of City Trial mode, a little bit random. So we've just played 5 minutes driving around an open track, trying to gain the most power-ups. Then the next mode is something that can be voted on by players. There's 4 different, what I would call mini games, ranging from everything from just a simple straight race, who can make it to the finish line the fastest, or something which I got to try, which was this sort of target-based air jumping mini game, where there's different points and a wall in front of you, and depending on how well you can sort of maneuver your machine in the air, you can try and go for the 100 points, go for the 50, but if you time it too early or you time it too short, you may end up on the ground, at which point you'll only be awarded 5 points. So it's really weird because City Trial mode, as far as I can tell, it's got this really chaotic and anarchic sort of multiplayer in-arena battle mode of sorts, and then it very quickly can change into something else entirely, where you get the choice between choosing between one of 4 mini games that might have you doing different things in your machine, or, you know, as any one of those main characters. So Kirby's Air Riders, definitely not just another Mario Kart World clone, far from it. The racing feels different, the action is in many ways a lot more high speed and a lot more frantic, plus you get that element of randomization with the City Trial mode, which is obviously the main one I got to demo today, whereby you never know what you're gonna end up with next, be it a randomized boss. What kind of power-up are you gonna get this time? What sort of machine am I gonna jump into? Then you get the second phase, where it's a completely different minigame. So Kirby's Air Riders, I would say don't write it off. There's still a lot I want to know about. Again, I only got to play for 30 minutes, and in that time, my session felt a little bit rushed. I was like, okay, what does this mechanic do? How am I meant to drive? Why can't I land parallel when, you know, I'm pretty much a god at Mario Kart World? Actually, I'm not good at Mario Kart World. But anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Coming at you from Gamescom, those were my impressions of Kirby's Air Riders. Are you intrigued? Did you watch that 45-minute direct? Will you be picking this up when it releases later this year for Nintendo Switch 2? Be sure to let me know. Until then, I want to say thank you for watching. Leave this video a like if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing to the All Out Gaming YouTube channel to stay up to date with even more videos like this. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.